What's going on, guys? BMP back with another bad movie review this week on
Zoombies
2. And real quick, I'm just going to set up the premise for you guys. So the movie follows Brooke, who is the vet of this animal refuge, and a couple of poachers who end up breaking in the night before, which we will get to, and Randy, who is one of the rangers of the refuge, or the main ranger. And of course, this is actually it's Zoombies 2, but it's not actually a sequel. It's actually a prequel explaining how the entire virus started and led us to Eden, which was the zoo in the first movie.
Take it away, Chris.
Yeah, so this is no disrespect to the character of Toronto, because he winds up becoming my favorite character. But right at the start, he fleshes a rabbit foot that's on his pants to show and make sure that he's a pro at this. This isn't his first rodeo.
As the poachers get into the refuge, they end up passing a meerkat, which another poacher, Giselle, ends up shooting it with her own concoction. She says that it's supposed to paralyze the animal from the inside out. But of course, what it actually does is turn it into a zombie. When Toronto is walking in a different area of the refuge with two of his men, they start hearing the rustling. And one soldier busts out this line.
Bro, what was it?
And it just cracked me up, only because the way he says it, he's already giving attitude, as if like he didn't want to come on this trip to begin with.
Bro, what was it?
What are we doing over here? Really? This is what we're dealing with? I told you I shouldn't have come on this trip.
And then the zombie meerkats attack.
Yes, and this was actually, you caught this because me and Chris didn't. This was great.
He gets attacked, falls to the ground at the very bottom of the screen. What's happening? He's being attacked by a stuffed animal that looked like Timon.
Yeah, that was actually a very good catch by you, because we got past that scene completely, and then you were like, whoa, go back, rewind. Rewind it right now.
What? Stuffed animal?
We get a part where one of the poachers, who had previously lost his fingers to a meerkat, him and Toronto are trying to escape, and they end up stopping at a wall. And Toronto says, let's jump over it and let's get going. And the other guy wants to go to the station to turn themselves in, but mostly just to get to safety, because he knows, they're pretty much going to die out here. As they're discussing this, a rogue rhino starts stampeding towards them. Toronto gets out of the way, but this other poor bastard gets impaled by this rhino. And I just thought that was a very entertaining shot.
All right, so after that whole scene, they jump to the scene back in the lodge there, and they're doing work on the porcupine. And in the background, it caught my attention so quickly, and you were like, is that a can of soda in the background? I'm like, yep, that's a legit can of soda. There was no product placement in that at all. They just said, here, soda.
Giselle and the woman who was controlling the camera footage, I don't remember her name, they end up getting brought to the station, or to the vet station, and locked in a room until the chopper is able to come to pick them up. And I think they said it's going to take like 6 hours. In the meantime, they have these two porcupines there who are showing the erratic behavior, but they're in cages. One of the other workers that work with Brooke is Logan, and he acts as sort of her assistant while this is all going on. But she tells him to, I think, prep them for some kind of observation or something, just to get them ready, I guess. And when he gets in there, they're both out of their cages. They bit through the walls of the cages. At that point, I would have been out. I went right back through that exit door that I walked in. But no, he was a brave little boy, and he gets the syringe and he goes into the room to try to stop them. Yeah, porky. And this is the result. So yeah, we lose Logan in the first half hour of the movie.
I'll be honest, this movie, people are dying left and right. Don't get attached to like anybody because they're just eating shit left and right.
Yeah, there were some characters, I'm not going to spoil it because we are going to get to it later. There were some characters that I was really hoping made it to the end, and they didn't. Randy ends up taking Toronto and two of Randy's other men, to go out and have Toronto show them where this meerkat attack happened, because they didn't believe it. You know, at first they said that Toronto was high, then they said Toronto killed his own men, so they didn't believe it. They wanted him to show them what it was. And of course they end up coming across the zombified animals anyway, and their mission shifts to then go find KD, who was another worker that works with Brooke, and him and another worker, Ford, are releasing a baby hippo back into the refuge to be with his family. But we will get to that in a few minutes. In the meantime, we find out that Giselle is actually the one... Well, we knew she created the chemical that she dosed these animals with, but we didn't know to what extent it was. And Brooke is able to find out that it was a really toxic chemical, possibly a neurotoxin that affected the aggression in the animals, which could explain their obvious aggressive behavior. We cut back to Randy and the gang, and at this point, KD and Ford are running away from a stampede of rhinos. And Randy pulls up in the Jeep, KD gets in, Ford goes to climb onto the back. Then the Jeep just stops working. They don't really explain why, because all he did was stop the car. But then all of a sudden he can't move it, it's off. And this was supposed to be like a suspenseful scene of him trying to get the Jeep to work again, which was confusing because I feel like, wouldn't you know how to work your own vehicle? And even if it wasn't his and it was the vet's, he clearly has a working relationship with them based on what we hear in the movie. So why do you not know how to work this car? But a couple seconds later, we know why he didn't know how to work the car. It was to build to this moment where he gets to work again.
Push the button! Press the button! Push the button! Push the button! You can say so!
And poor Ford is just left there to die in one of the wackiest scenes that this movie has to offer.
KD is livid. He despises Toronto. At one point, he punches him in the face, and everybody's freaking out. And KD just goes from this freaked out, paranoid guy who hates Toronto to having one of the funniest sudden character shifts with this face. And I was like, wait, what changed from literally 3 seconds? And it's not like he doesn't hate Toronto after this. He actively hates him still. Up until the part where he eats shit. He hates him. So I don't get this scene, whatsoever.
It was just like he had a bright idea. So right after that scene with Chris, they have to cross that giant river to get to the back to the lodge. And that's the only way they have to go from there. So they get in the kayaks, and they're rowing across, and KD is trailing behind slowly, which already something was going to happen. So as they're getting across, out pops the hippo in the background. Then they feel the bump in the boat, and you already know, here it is. The hippo takes the oar from KD, and then a few seconds later, this hippo just throws KD about 500 feet in the air and then just catches and eats him.
That's a first.
Do you know what I thought of, though, when he got thrown up in the air? Was just Team Rocket blasting off again, popped into my head. Because that's exactly what it looked like.
We actually did forget to talk about one death, because we're covering all the deaths in the movie, obviously. Matt, when you mentioned that the baby porcupine was able to get into the locked room with Giselle and the camera girl, we failed to mention the camera girl's poor death. Because wow, I'm just gonna show it here real quick. We don't have to say anything else about it. It just had to be shown. So at this point in the movie, the only surviving people are Randy, Brooke, Toronto, and Giselle. And this is what I was saying earlier, that this was where I hoped it stayed. This was the group I wanted to survive because I actually really liked all these characters, including Giselle and Toronto, who ended up being like the nicest bad guys ever. You know, like they were poachers and everything, but pretty quickly they ended up becoming friendly, helpful.
Well, he even asked for a job.
Yeah, I mean, and that's what I actually thought the movie was going to go. Like, in the end, we were going to see that him and Randy now were both rangers on the refuge working together. But that's not the case, as we see in a few minutes. But what does happen is Giselle finds out that the antidote she had previously made, with help from Brooke, wasn't permanent. It only lasted temporarily. And then she realized the reason was the key to the cure was human blood. She purposely made it that way. Something to do with the enzymes in the human blood, yada yada. What she realized afterwards was that taking the blood out of the human body into a syringe, into a vial, whatever it is, changes something about it to not make the cure as powerful, which is why it's only temporary. So she ends up realizing and saying that the only way to do it is to put the cure in your own body and then have the animals feed off of that, because it's coming directly from your bloodstream into the animal's body. And then she decides that she's going to do it. She's going to save everyone. She's going to get the cure from the lab and put it in herself. Only problem is there's a crocodile standing in her way. So she makes a run for it. And this is what disappointed me about this death, is because this seemed like one of the most useless deaths we had. You know, because the rest were all like side characters that, you know, had to be done. You know, we were thinning out the herd of characters. We were showing these animals to be dangerous. This is what needs to happen. They were expected. But for Giselle, like, the crocodile just tripped her.
If I put the cure in me, I can save all of us.
It tripped her with his tail, and she landed practically in his mouth. Because that's the next thing we saw. After Giselle gets killed, the animals start gathering at the vet lodge. And that's what actually inspired this background for me today, because it just reminded me of the opening scene of Lion King, where all the animals gather at Pride Rock. Because we got animals that we didn't see the whole movie. We had elephants there, giraffes. Like, it would have been nice to see these earlier, just to at least hint at this gathering scene, but they just came out of the woodwork, these animals. And what ends up happening is Toronto puts the cure in his own body, wants to sacrifice himself so that Randy and Brooke can get away, because Brooke is pregnant. And like I said earlier, these are the nicest bad guys I've ever seen. To attract the animals to get away, Brooke sprays him with pheromones so that they'll be attracted to him. He hops on a motorcycle that KD had fixed earlier in the movie, and he just rides right out of the station.
Off into the sunset.
Yep, never to be seen again.
Come and get some of this fast food, you sons of bitches! Woo!
And that was another thing that bothered me, because I like Toronto. I actually like Toronto a lot. And if you guys remember in Orcs, when, I don't remember their names, it's a very long time ago, but the two main characters, the Rangers, They did get that happy ending when they were able to be Rangers in Hawaii or Honolulu, specifically. Like, he wanted to. They got that happy ending. I actually thought we were going to get kind of like a mirror image of that in this movie, where Randy and Toronto would be that team of Rangers. But no, Toronto has to be the nicest guy and sacrifice himself. Randy and Brooke get on the helicopter that just landed a few minutes ago. But of course the pilot was killed off too. And they get in it and they start flying off. So at this point you'd think everything's good, because Toronto lured all the animals away, and Randy and Brooke even say, oh, they're starting to change back. So it's starting to work. But I guess we had to get one last bit of intensity in this movie, because 3 meerkats stowed away on the helicopter and start fighting them off. And nothing really came of it. We didn't get another sudden death. Randy didn't magically die. They ended up fighting off all 3 meerkats and surviving anyway. So it seemed like a really wasted scene.
You know what I thought was going to happen with that scene, though? I thought they were going to accidentally throw one of the meerkats out of the helicopter, and it was going to survive, and that's how it transitioned.
Oh, so how to connect it back to the first movie?
That's what I was thinking at first, until they clarified that afterwards.
Yeah, but that's the thing. It was weird, because Brooke kicked one out of the helicopter. Randy smashed the other one's head against the dashboard, and then Brooke chucked the other one into the propeller. So I'm not really sure what the point was. We do get a scene at the end of the movie, which is how it connects back to the first one, where one of the characters from the first movie, the doctor who was running the Eden Zoo.
Dr. Ellen Rogers, I have her name written down.
Yes. She actually comes back to play the same part in the end of this movie, where you find out Brooke actually knows her, and that is where the animals in this refuge were being sent to. They were being sent to the Eden Zoo, which was opening in a few weeks. So I actually really enjoyed that connection that they made.
Yes.
Because even Brooke was saying, if you see any aggression in the animals, please contact me, let me know. Because she was still a little weary that it wasn't permanent, the cure. And if you had seen the first movie, you know that she was right. We do get this last bit in that scene where Ellen calls up a scientist and says,
Monty, how far away are you and those monkeys?
Which does fit back to the first movie, because they were experimenting or testing with these monkeys, and the monkeys escaped, and that's how it spread the virus in Eden to begin with. So I think it surprisingly did a very good job connecting it back to the first movie and solidifying itself as an actual prequel. So after Ellen calls the guy for the monkeys, screen fades to black, we get credits, and that's the end of the movie. One thing, Matt, you had brought up was to possibly rewatch Zoombies again, because we did go back and look at what grades we gave it.
D-.
I'm going to say a D. Of course, that was on our original scale, but we gave it almost failing. And it's very strange, and we found it strange because we found ourselves enjoying this movie a lot more. So maybe we will. Maybe we'll do a rewatch of Zoombies and see either why that grade should stick, or we were completely wrong with what our assessment was. But for now, let's focus on this movie, and we'll jump into our grades. So Matt, we'll start with you.
I give this movie yes, I know. Surprising, since our first one was crap. I think we should redo it, because I actually enjoyed this prequel. As much as, I pick at things, but I enjoyed where the story went and how they created everything and where it took us.
Chris, how about you?
I'm going to have to agree with Matt on this one. I honestly really, really enjoyed this movie. I'm going to give it an A.
Very good. I am also going to have to give this movie a nice solid A. I really
This is our
enjoyed
first
it.
AAA.
There you go. It's a AAA title. I really enjoyed this movie, and I think what made it so good, which is actually why I'm interested to do a rewatch of the first Zoombies, is because I feel like this movie knew what it was. It just had fun with it. It was a wacky movie. The premise is wacky as shit, but they rolled with it. A lot of the deaths that we saw were wacky. They were cartoonish, almost. Ford getting hucked out of the back of the Jeep just because he started it. and getting trampled by the rhinos. Like, what the hell? KD getting hurled up into the air 400 feet like it's the Olympic Games. I mean, like, these deaths were funny.
The porcupine and the death needles.
Yeah, and the girl with the missing face. I mean, I feel like this movie knew what it was. Like, listen, let's just have fun with it. You know, if it comes out funny, it's funny, whether it's on purpose or by accident. You know, but I really enjoyed this movie. So yeah, AAA from us, guys. So that'll do it for this week's review on Zoombies 2. We actually are in September at this point, and we are doing sequel month. That's why we did Zoombies 2 this week, and next week we're tackling San Andreas Megaquake, which is a sequel to the fantastic movie San Andreas Quake. So we're checking that out next week. As always, guys, if you watch this movie, let us know what you thought about it down in the comments below. If you like what we had to say, like this video, share it with your friends, subscribe to catch more of these reviews every week. Until then, I'm Anthony.
Chris.
And we'll see you next time. Later.